Xin chào.
Hello. Welcome to BV2 episode. What are we? Here is it? Episode 12 or 11?
12.
Episode 12. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. We made 12 episodes. Well, not we. I've only come in late. I'm running the finishing leg, I think. Not the opening leg. That was Hugh and the gang. So welcome to BV2, brought you live from the valleys and somewhere in the Midlands. Recently, we've become massive in Asia, huge in Vietnam, picking up 800 Vietnamese followers over the weekend after the Gar Thomas show. Seems to have attracted a massive amount of Vietnamese followers. Amazing, taking us up to 1,900 followers on Facebook. Pretty spectacular. Well, joining me as always is the enigmatic stat meister of the show. Should be on the chase. He actually looks like the chap off the chase these days.
I was wondering who you were talking about then until you said that.
It's Hugh, Shaky Thomas. Hugh, how are you? How's your week been, boy?
All right, how's it going, boys? Yeah, been good. Had a bit of a quiet weekend. The constant pinging on our phone from a Vietnamese following was a bit annoying towards the end. I put a mute.
Different time zone as well.
Gar stretched us beyond now into Asia. I mean, fantastic. I can't believe how many views we had for Gar last week. I didn't realise he was as famous as he thought he was. It's incredible.
He wasn't even our most interesting guest, was he?
Yeah.
You didn't even give
he
him
was
the
right
line.
all along, and we were so wrong. No, he was great last week, Gar, so that was brilliant. Like.
If Gar's watching, right, you didn't even give him the line, you're in my top 3 guests, which you tend to give everyone, to be fair.
Yeah, but he wasn't, so
honestly, but what you didn't realise is he bring with him 800 Vietnamese followers.
Yeah. I've got a rugby question, and Ed might come in this now, because Ed, you're actually a qualified rugby referee as well. Am I right in saying that?
I am, yes, for my sins. Yeah, doing coding.
Right, at the end of the game, did you see the end of the Bristol game?
I saw a little bit of it.
And a fight starts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you see it, Carl?
Yeah. Wait a second. No, Hugh, before you jump into that, I'm really keen that Dan gets to tell us about his week before you jump in. Straight into the guts of the show, Stato.
Sorry.
Nobody cares about my week. I've had a good week as always.
Oh, that's enough for you, Dan. But look, I was going to ask him. We weren't that interested. Carry on, Hugh, as you were. About the fight at the end of the day, I saw it.
The fight at the end, isn't it? And everybody piles in. I know, I went to that. But do you notice the subs piling into the fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's a huge bugbear of me. I used to, when I was manager of Australia, I used to see it all the time. Like, subs would come in, you speak to referees, and they wouldn't want to make a fuss about it. Like, but I don't know your thoughts on this, because I find it a very dangerous practice when people not on the field in rugby or football get involved. And it was a bit like, whoa. And then somebody's saying, oh, but Ellis Geng grabbing this bloke. Well, the bloke shouldn't be there, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. What are your thoughts on it, Carl?
Me, personally, look, a sub coming onto the pitch is no different to a spectator coming onto this pitch to me. At that point in time, they're not involved in the game. So I know everyone tries to be man-o-man and look after their mates and, we're all in it together. But the reality is, and firstly, it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Let's be honest. I know there's a bit of bad blood there and a bit of frustration boiling over a bit with Tigers because of different circumstances. But if you're not on a pitch, don't get involved. Like, if you're not good enough to be on a pitch at that time, or if you're having a rest, or if you're injured, or you're substituted, or whatever it is, there's no difference to the man in the stand running down and getting involved. Like, so to me, stay off. Like, and at that level, at Premier Level, look, there's no one's throwing hands. Everyone's just like basically bear hugging and wrestling each other. Like, so there's nothing nasty going to happen to anyone. Like, not like if you're up Gandhifaith or Gilfach Goch and it kicks off, then you want your subs on pretty sharpish. To be honest, you want everyone on.
Does it ever happen in football, Ed?
Not so much. I was going to say not so much. There was an incident last week funny enough, in Israel, in their Super Cup final, where a tackle happened in the middle of the field. Player commits a foul, not recognised. Play carries on, and inevitably the guy who's committed the foul scores the rebound. All hell breaks loose because it goes to VAR, and then VAR come back and big celebrations from the goal, all wiped out because he gets red carded for the initial tackle. and then all hell breaks loose. Subs coming on, managers coming on, and not a good sight for football in general. But so it happens. It doesn't happen very often, but as you say, then any of those sort of like subs, they tend to make the situation far worse than often what it actually is. Yeah. So the classic one in football is goalkeepers running from distance to have their 10 pence worth because they've seen something from 85 yards away that somebody 10 yards hasn't, and they stick out like a sore thumb because they're in a luminous orange shirt. So it kind of makes them easy to kind of pick out as somebody.
They're normally massive as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Leave the goalkeepers alone.
Let's do a bit of an introduction to our guest then. We've gone straight.
Oh, sorry, I got carried away. Yeah,
he's an interesting bloke, and you know what, Ed? So our guest for this evening is Astragan Rice cricket legend, football legend, dodgy fly halfers. I played with Ed actually. In my third win. And was actually quite a visionary number 10, defence optional, but defence was optional for most 10s back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
but a very, very skillful player. Ed, international football referee as well. Wow, welcome to the show, Ed. Really, really pleased to have you.
Thanks, Carl. Thanks, guys. Been great to be here.
I'm really interested journey, Ed, and I've got to be honest, like I kind of, obviously we went to school together and stuff, and you went off and did stuff. So until recently, and this is my thing, I didn't realise you'd achieved everything you'd achieved in football. You've done phenomenally well. So, when they put the picture up, and I don't know if Mike has got a message here from Bradley Williams. So he's a big fan. And he said, Eddie King, legend of Astragan Lice cricket. So it seems locally, you're better known for being a cricketer than you are being an international ref or international official, shall we say. But, so... the picture that the guys put up of you and with I don't know the name of that ref, the bald fella, but he's a really, really famous ref. I've seen him ref loads of time. I just don't know his name.
So that was Howard Webb, who refereed the World Cup final in South Africa in 2010. The carnage between Spain and the Netherlands.
The drop
kick that didn't get spotted. So so the picture that's on the Facebook feed is from the Gary Speed Memorial International. So Coward was invited by the Welsh FA to referee that because he was good mates with our referee's manager at the time, Roger Gifford, and so I was just lucky to be one of the three Welsh officials who were able to be involved on the night, alongside Phil Thomas and Kevin Morgan. It was a very very emotional occasion for obvious reasons, on the back of Gary's passing, with his sons coming out as part of the initial lineup. It was just nice to be involved. Just nice to have been asked and considered. Good enough to be put into that sort of arena, really, on that sort of occasion. So,
well, I'm glad you've explained the context of that picture, because I don't know if Mike can put that picture up for us now. But so, Mike, if you just give me a thumbs up when that's up. But I just want the people at home to be able to see the picture. And I'm glad you put some context behind it, because everyone looks deadly serious, don't they? Those officials, they look like they're basically everyone is looking really intense. So I thought, I don't know what's gone off there. Like, I never expected. So that explains the context behind it. And I must say, Ed, you were the best looking of the lot. Like, so fair play to you. You were the pin-up boy of the Welsh FA there. So let's rewind the.
Didn't Howard Webb have Player of the Year for Man United when you? A bit of controversy there. He's a big Man U fan, wasn't he?
Spoken like a true Arsenal fan, and a United conspiracy theory or Liverpool conspiracy theory. It swaps from year to year, doesn't it? So,
what was he like? Because he got a bit of a reputation for having, being a strong guy and a bit of a reputation as well towards the end, wasn't he? What was he like? Did you get that impression from him?
I think. It's difficult to get that sort of impression from one particular game, given it as a friendly, and he's a great a great guy. You know, when we were walking from the car park, the amount of people that asked for his signature, both pre and post match, and he stopped and signed every one of them. You know, that sort of like showed the level of his recognition at that particular time. You know, he was, you know, one of the most famous referees in the world, one of the best known in England. So no doubt in the tougher games, you know, being an ex-policeman, you know, we would have that steel to kind of, you know, be firm and, you know, just, you know, if you start carding people, you keep on going, and you know, and that sometimes is easier said than done, you know, in those tough games. So you know, he was great. You know, nothing was too much trouble for him, and you know, he just treated us as part of any normal match day team of his. If he was going around the Premier League, so yeah, you know, no, he was good as gold with us.
What an amazing guy, though. To be fair, what a great, you know, not just his gestures. It says a lot about someone actually, whether they spend time with the fans and stuff like that. But what a great advert for the game, like. And you know, I guess it was good. Was that the first time you'd worked with him?
Yeah, first and only. Yeah, so you know,
your autograph.
I probably did. Said, "Oh, for a
selfie
for my son, could you sign this?" You know, in a frame.
Well, fair play to you. So let's rewind the clock all the way back. Then let's go back to your days in Mysore and your early years in the valleys and stuff. Tell us about you know, how you got into sport and what was your interest in sport, and what sports were you most interested in?
I suppose it's like back in the day, totally different to now in terms of, you know, sports coverage and even sort of like availability of teams, because I didn't start playing junior football until I was just coming up to 10. You know, there was no such thing as under sixes, under sevens playing mini football. You were playing under 10s, pretty much under 10s and 11s, full pitch, and that's how I started playing. And I got interested just by watching sport on TV, you know, whether I was football, rugby, cricket. It was just one of those things that sort of like grabbed me, and you know, as somebody who liked being outside, you know, it just kind of helped in terms of just being active and out and about, really. In terms of what sport kind of worked better for me, you know, I kind of enjoyed all of them, really, and it just kind of how you fall into one particular sport or more at that particular time, really, because the after school clubs weren't necessarily there in the mid 80s, you know.
So so you obviously established yourself quite early on with cricket. Did you have a natural draw to sort of hand to eye type sports, or was it team sports? Where was your kind of natural draw?
I think the natural draw was perhaps more towards the team sport element in terms of the football, but I seem to do okay in terms of the hand-eye coordination in terms of cricket, and kind of being able to, you know, bat a little bit, you know, be able to bowl a little bit at that age, and just the general sort of enjoyment, really, of a wider team sport, with a bit of extra sort of like personal sort of like edge in terms of that sort of like cricket in example, because it's like, you know, in many respects is 1v1 for a big chunk of it, because you're just facing the bowler, and then you've got to try and work out how you're going to play the rest of the game, really, and treat each ball.
Definitely, and so your involvement, you start, you know, your involvement with, let's look at your pathway to kind of your cricket experience first. You know, started playing with Ystrad. How old were you when you first started playing with Ystrad Nice Cricket Club?
I started playing with Ystrad probably 15 years of age, 15, 16. You know, there were no junior teams back then. I was good friends with Ivy Morgan, I was Bach, and you know, his dad played for Ystrad for many a year, and you know, on a Saturday afternoon, just used to cycle down and sit in the boundary and you know, and watch a load of cricket, and that's sort of how you kind of got into it, really, and got that offer to sort of like say, well, do you actually play? Well, I played a little bit in school, fancy a game for the seconds, it kind of roped in that way, really.
Did you hit a ton when you were in your teens? Is that
yeah. I think it was about 17, I think, playing for the seconds. Somewhere like, I'm going to say somewhere like Buryport on a bank holiday Monday, something like that. Probably using a bat that was 4 times the size of my arms, so I didn't have to hit it very hard, So just push it in the gaps and let the ball whittle away to the boundary, really. So
there's a huge mental strength, isn't it, to hit the century, I should imagine. It's a bit like if you're playing snooker and you hit a century in snooker, or there's a lot of concentration involved for a long time, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, because you end up facing a lot of balls, especially the way I played. I was never a big hitter of the ball. I wasn't going to hit 100 or 50 balls crashing, sort of like 9 sixes. I always had to push it in the gaps and accumulate as opposed to kind of crash it about. So you do end up having to concentrate a lot harder, because you just, it's more intense, because you take more deliveries to make that that score. And that analogy with snooker is really good, because it's in some ways is exactly the same, because you need the right position shot in snooker, and when you're playing cricket, it's like you'll hit a couple of boundaries in a certain area, and then the team will move their fielders to kind of block that gap for you, and then you've got to try and find a different way of breaking that gap, really, and breaking the field to score some runs. So yeah, that's a good analogy, Shaky.
How many centuries did you hit altogether during
I think three all in all. So then that one for the seconds, and I think I had 2 very late on for the first, after they'd come out of the South Wales Cricket Association. I went into the West Wales Cricket Association.
You peaked a bit soon, Ed, really.
Yeah, I did a bit. Burnt the bridges early on.
300 was probably more than I hit in my entire cricketing career. I was a blocker by nature. I should have been a slogger, but I just didn't have the coordination to do it. I managed to get a forward defensive shot, and I think that was my lot. Shaky, you played a bit of cricket too, didn't you?
Only for the seconds. Like I used to not bowl and bat number 11. So 21 not out was my highest ever, which is more or less, I was just edging it flukily, and it was going past people. There was no wisdom to the way I was batting. You know what I mean? It was just like complete fluke. So
I see you made a couple of pictures anyway. Like just in case we've got anyone tuning in from Vietnam, because let me just say hi to them, guys. I hope you don't mind. I need to get this out, because I'm sure everyone appreciates we're very, very big in Vietnam. But Chi Hao to you, hello. We've got 900 followers from Vietnam. Can't get my head around that. Sorry, boys. Carry on as we were, innit? So cricket, obviously, a love and a passion. Did you follow England cricket at all? Was that did you ever follow the England cricket team, etc.?
Yeah, so so you follow them on the TV, and when I was first starting getting into it, it was Botham and Gower, and then, even though I was dubbed more of a boycott-esque as opposed to those sort of like flair players. So that's when I first started watching England, and I was lucky enough to have a holiday in Australia over the winter to watch some Ashes.
Oh wow!
The Boxing Day and New Year tests in Australia many years ago, 2003, I think it was.
What was that like? Because the Australians are they're quite fanatical about their cricket, aren't they? It's quite a big sport out there for them.
Oh, it is massive, and when we went, myself, Lee Morgan, Adrian Griffiths, and a few others, we went to the MCG was being rebuilt. So even when it was being rebuilt into the magnificent stadium is today, 30,000 there, absolutely baying for blood. There's no kind of nicey about it. Brett Lee charging in, bowling 95-mile-an-hour bouncers at, England batsmen. And, somebody's bowling quick when even the home crowd are going, ooh. It's like, it's like, they were quite happy to, smash England into the ground and, took great pleasure in doing so,
Wow. What was that like, Englishman in that crowd?
There was
an Englishman, but I literally say
I can't get behind the concept. I can't get behind the concept of it. I know everyone says it's like the England and Wales cricket board, but there must be a silent W on the jersey, I think, is there? It says ECB, doesn't it? I can't get my head around why Wales don't have a side. When you see Ireland and Scotland have got sides, Glamorgan was there, at one time a very strong county, wasn't it? And why that was never utilised, as if it's a game that they just want to keep 8 or 9 countries playing rather than extended. I don't know.
And I think, if you look at it now, it does all come down to money. You look at the strength of the Indian cricket board. They basically call probably near on all of the shots, because if you look at the IPL, the amount of money that goes through there, in all sports really, it's those with the biggest purses. They tend to dominate some of the conversations. So probably from a Glamorgan point of view, is that they do very well out of the funding from the test matches that are held in the country. So probably drive some of the.
Robert Croft made a bit of sense once. He said something, I'm sure it could have been on Gar's show actually, that playing for Glamorgan, he looked at like just playing for Wales, and then playing for England, he looked at like playing for the Lions. That's how we looked at it really. It's in the name is a bit different, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
There's plenty of great Welshmen played for England, isn't there? Obviously, I mean, is Steve Jones the bowler?
Steve Jones the bowler.
Simon Jones.
Simon Jones. Steve James. Steve James the batter had a couple. Greg Thomas had a couple. Matthew Maynard had a couple, and then fell out with the management when he was in the West Indies, drinking with Viv Richards apparently.
Oh dear.
Because they were good mates, because Viv was playing for Glamorgan at the time, so they hung out a lot in the West Indies, and Maynard probably didn't play much after that. Really,
it was a mystery how Steve James didn't get more caps, really, wasn't he? He's a great opener, wasn't he? He played for rugby as well, didn't he? He played for Exeter.
Yeah.
He centre for Exeter.
Yeah, Hugh Morris as well, another good opener from Glamorgan. And, and that probably comes down to Glamorgan not being a particularly fashionable county in the eyes of selectors. A bit of natural bias towards the southeast of England, where, or the traditional hotbeds of Lancashire and Yorkshire, that's kind of.
The one that breaks my heart that never played for England was Dorian Barlow.
12th
man for England, Mr. Barlow.
12th man, yes.
he was he one of the better players you had a chance to play with in Australia?
Ability-wise, we caught him probably at the tail end of his career, but you could definitely tell his undoubted talents. He was on the Leicestershire ground staff with David Gowan, Ray Illingworth. That was a prized photo of his, and in some ways it was what might have been with him. He
was basically Carl. He was a guy, and Daniel. I don't know if you know Dorian Barlow. He was a former professional cricketer. Played for Leicestershire, is it? West. He played for somebody else, Middlesex. He
was on the ground staff there. Yeah,
Middlesex. So. And he ended up being a 12th man for England. He came down as like a development officer in Australia for cricket. He ended up playing for Australia. But he was a character. That's one word to describe him. Really, he was.
He was a definite character.
Now, I like Dorian though. He did a lot to me when I was playing junior cricket. Him and Martin Donnelly. So I've got fond memories of him. He was a character.
Oh, definitely. No, I can imagine. And coming to the Valleys must have been a strange old thing for him, really, to come from where he'd been previously. So fair play. So Ed, let's talk about your footballing stuff then, because that's, I think, what everyone really wants to hear about. Is we're going into the Euros now. Football's obviously, going to be massively relevant. It's always relevant, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's a huge global sport, but it's going to be even bigger in terms of public consciousness over the next 3 or 4 weeks. How did you get into, obviously, international?
On a Saturday morning, they just they were scarce, equally scarce then as they are now, and the dads who were playing in the afternoon didn't fancy running around for an hour in the morning anyway. So it was a bit of one of you lot have got a ref, and then started off being me. So that's how I started reffing, and then played senior football for Cum Wanderers for a couple of years, and then decided to have a break for a few months, and just because I just wasn't particularly playing well. So I thought, I'll take the course and go to the end of the season and see how we go. And that's 30 years ago, and that's how the journey started. Refereed through the Neath League, got promoted through the system, then into the Welsh League, and you joined then as an assistant referee. So back in the day, you weren't specialist, so you'd referee 1 week in the Neath League and be an assistant referee in the Welsh League. Got promoted to be Welsh League referee. So at that stage, you became a referee at basically Division 2, Tier 2, and then be an assistant on the Welsh Premier League as Tier 1. So then you do both, and then after a couple of years, I got invited to fitness test for prospective FIFA officials, and there's no promises or anything.
What do those fitness tests entail then? Let's be honest, because look, Dan, Hugh and I, we're fit blokes, like, so we want to know whether or not we'd cut the mustard right now.
Well, I saw your sub 30k 30-minute 5k earlier, so
say 30k.
30 minutes, sub 30 minute 5k,
minutes, yeah.
Which isn't bad, to be honest with you. I've been drinking beer for 9 days flat. Literally, I hope my doctor's not watching. But I must have, I can't even imagine how many units I had. I had more units than you had centuries. If you added your runs up, I'm pretty sure those 3 centuries were I drunk in units over the last 9 days. So I was pretty amazed to get -30. I felt like I was being chased by the police or something. Aye, so
fitness test.
Aye, what does that entail? Go on, hit this rate. And each bit of it, Shaky, Dan, honestly, would we make it? Like, would we pass that fitness test?
Are we talking now, or are we talking perhaps in our prime?
Look, we're in our prime now.
I'm in my prime now. I could never run before.
I'm not in my prime.
That's why you've left Fat Club, Shaky. We've got a new challenge, mate. You need to get back on there. New challenge starting this week.
Does it involve putting weight on?
No, but you're in a good place. You're in a good place to lose him. You're in a good place to lose him, Shake. So you're gonna do what I've done. I spent a week and a bit fattening up, so that my starting weight is gonna be heavier than my finishing weight in the last one by about half a stone. Cheat the system. If you can't win, cheat. Right, Ed, hit us with our fitness test. Come on, ready for it.
So back in the day, it would have been some like four or five 50-meter sprints in probably about 7 seconds, something like that.
Yeah, finished. No, I went out.
I was thinking TV so far, I'm thinking.
Oh, bloody hell, we have to watershed, do we, to swear? No, a bit early. Sorry if your children are watching this, guys. Don't get them to run that distance.
No. And then it was a couple of 200-meter sprints in 32 seconds ish, something like that.
Fair play.
And then and then you do a continuous run for 12 minutes, and then you'd have to do 6 3/4 laps in the 12 minutes, minimum of, those who were old and wise, did 2,701, the young and keen ones would try and run a bit further. So
think you get bonus marks, like thinking you get.
Yeah, there was a bit of that. And I think as you perhaps get a bit more older and wiser, you realise that you just need to pass the test. But that's talking about a test, nearly 25 years ago. The fitness test has totally evolved in terms of what they ask people to do to be more reflective of what happens during the game. It's more intense. It's more about repeated sprinting ability and quicker recovery. So in this day and age, it's 6 40-meter sprints in a time. The assistants have to do like an agility test where they sprint side to side back, and then run back through the gate. So it's more reflective of what they do in a game in terms of moving side to side. And then the repetition is based on a football pitch is more or less 75 meters. So you do 75 meters in to do 18 seconds or so, and then you get a 50-meter walk. So 25 meters out, 25 meters back, and that's like 20 seconds. And then you basically got to do that 40 times.
Some of the assistant or linesmen, whatever they call these days, you see they're quite intense the way they move the side to side, and they've got some of them are quite funny. You see there's a few comedy videos about the way a lot of them move. Is that what's your kind of stance on it? I know obviously got to be focused on the game, but you see some of them are quite rigid, and it's quite funny.
Vin as sort of like the national sort of like coach for the assistants, Vin, I'm not so worried about ticks or movements or intensity. It is literally about making sure that they're in the right position to make the correct judgment. And some will be more relaxed doing it, and some the only way that they can concentrate is by being nailed on focused. It kind of that nervous energy where they're waiting for the next play of the ball. Then are they ready for it? And that's where sort of like people sort of like end up bouncing around, and it's kind of, but it's whatever works for them really.
Just to jump on, let me do a couple of quick shout outs. I want to do a quick shout out to John Fuge. He's just said hello, evening all. So hi John, welcome to the show. We've got Yeti, Darren Fielding joining us from New Zealand, regular of the shows, to be honest, old Yeti. So thank you, Darren, for joining us. And Ben Innes has come on as well, one of our Stud's finest. Abercrave as well. Don't talk about the red card. Hugh, don't bring it up. You tend to bring it up all the time. But yeah, Ben, welcome to the show. So we've got a few local boys coming in, which is great to see. Brilliant.
On YouTube, I got Chris Locke. We've got 2 cricketing questions to ask you later, Ed, to remind me from Christopher Locke. And
fabulous.
And Liam Delaney, Liam Fergus. Another opened with you but both of them have opened with you on occasions, Edward.
Yes, definitely.
So yeah, sorry, Carl.
No, you can't. That's brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Ask Carl. So I think it's obviously the referee is obviously the main focal one for the stick, isn't it, doing the games. But do you think it's harder being a linesman because you're literally right next to the crowd, aren't you? And is it more difficult, or what was your preference? Would you rather be on the field where you can shield a bit from the noise, or
as somebody who's kind of an international assistant for a wee while, we kind of specialism was being an assistant. But in terms of stick, when you're an assistant, in a big crowd, you most of the time very rarely genuinely hear it directed to you, because it just gets merged into a noise. If something's gone pear-shaped, because that's the only person he can be booing at is you, isn't it? It's trickier in sort of like in those grounds, where day to day in the Welsh Prem, where the guy is standing behind the fence, literally 6 feet from you, and giving you all sorts of dog's abuse, and it's the only part. You can run away for about 20 yards one way or 20 yards the other. Sooner or later, you're gonna be back in front of the guy. Yeah. When it's like something else has happened, and it's like something else for him to then jump on the bandwagon and call you whatever.
Great question here from Chris Round. Who is the most difficult player you have reffed or officiated with?
Charles Shaw.
I bet he was chopsy. I bet he was
Have
chopsy.
you ever refereed Carl Shaw?
Yes, yeah, many times in his Welsh League career.
That must have been difficult. Did you pretend you didn't know him, or was it like?
No.
You do that generally in life? Pretend you don't know him. Give it Tesco as Carl. I know.
No, in some respects it was difficult because we'd perhaps have a quick hello, I was saying, on nodding. If you spoke to Carl, I probably give him next to nothing in terms of decisions when he was playing. I know that I refereed him in the Welsh League's Cup final, and game was going on. I'd given a decision for Carl's team, and the away manager's gone absolutely ballistic, called me absolutely everything. So I've sent the manager out of the dugout. Like, I don't care whether it's a cup final. It's like, you're not calling me that. I've been on your way to the dressing rooms. And basically the whole appeal was based on not a denial of calling me a cheating, whatever, fill in your own expletives. Mm-hmm. His basic defence was, the referee knew the centre forward from Neath and was his best man, and they were best men at each other's weddings. That was the defence. That was the defence. And you had to trek up to Cardiff to do a disciplinary hearing. And listen to that and going, have you got anything to add? And it's like, no, we've been not seeing any relevance to why he's. Did
they kick that out? Did they kick?
Kicked it out. Yeah, I think one of the guys on the panel was laughing, was kind of asking the question of, did that influence your decision to send the manager out? It's like, funny enough, no, it wasn't. Everything I'd written in the report kind of summarized why I sent him out,
ridiculous, really, isn't it? I guess at those stage, and I think of it like I'm when I coach, so when I'm on the touchlines, my side's playing, I'm pretty animated and I'm at the ref all the time. I'm calling everything I can see, and I am absolutely in that space. Generally speaking, that only happens when I'm under the pump. It doesn't happen when we're winning, strangely enough. Yeah. When we're I had a couple of other coaches I on opposition, or I've coached with, have developed the same set of behaviours. It generally speaking, if you're on top, you're all smiles and happiness, and if you're under the pump, all of a sudden everything's coming out. And there's no excuses. And when you look for little nitpicks like that, he was his best man at his wedding, that's got absolutely no relevance to whether you've just given the side a decision or not, because, ultimately you're saying what you see. And most of the refs, I think overall are pretty fair on that.
Yeah, I think, the best referees I've ever seen, are the ones that are able to communicate, that are able to explain what they're doing, explain why they've given the decision. In rugby, it's easier and is a bit more formalized, in terms of accepting. Whereas in football, it's perhaps a little bit more dynamic and it's not quite as accepting in terms of, well, I've given it because I thought it was a push. Some players react well, some players kind of just blank you out, and and that's fine because you then don't chat to them. Because you don't waste your breath. So in terms of difficult players, that's probably really hard, and probably really unfair to kind of single individuals out, really, because if it was somebody that was hard for me, it might not necessarily be hard for somebody else because they just had a different rapport. Yeah, there are probably players that were really tough, and you just had to kind of work with them and kind of either try and pick your words and you try and manage them and kind of go, don't be so stupid, and you perhaps change the way that you speak to them. Whereas some players, it's like they might be hard work, but they're more arm around the shoulder sort of guys. Come on,
yeah,
come on, Carl, come on,
it was, yeah.
Don't be silly now, Vane. Don't give me any more problems. It's all different kind of management styles, really, and how does that help in trying to get you to manage the game in the best way possible, not just for the game, but in terms of everybody there really, and kind of making sure that there's a level of integrity to the game really, and kind of standing up for the values really, and that that's sometimes a tricky balance.
It's a tough job. I feel. I watch football. I watch football, and I always feel for the officials because football certainly at international level where you've refed, but even at even where there's lots at stake, isn't it? Those decisions, they're not small decisions in the context of a team's season, in terms of a player's value, in terms of their contract. If they if they get marginal decisions against them, that could cost in football, lots of lost revenue, lost contracts, so the implications in a game that has such high currency, has such high value, is massive. And it's big pressure on you guys to get those decisions right, I guess.
Oh, there's a huge level of pressure, even with, at the very, very top level in the Premier League, there's a huge level of pressure attached to getting those decisions right, because they're always the focus of when things go wrong, even with VAR. Very rare in any show reel about any game is, strike a balloon in the ball over the bar. That's more as a comedy moment, not that might have been the 3 points that kept them up and, saved them, 150 million or whatever. It very rarely focuses on players' performances over a 38 game season. It does tend to, and that's an occupational hazard, I suppose, for a match official.
I think it balances itself out a bit over the season. Like, you get things you go get for you things. If you look at England football now, that when they won the World Cup, that ball hits the bar, that doesn't cross the line. They've proven it since, it doesn't cross the line. But they get a goal, leads up to win the World Cup. 30 years later, 20 years later, sorry. Diego Maradona punches a ball in the back of the net. Sometimes you get the decision, sometimes you don't. But I do think it evens itself out a little bit over the years. I don't know. I've got no statistic for that. That's just theory.
Oh, and I guess it's the same in most sports. In rugby, as a rule, the game ebbs and flows, and sometimes you're on top and things are going your way, and sometimes they aren't. And I guess it's the team that handles both of those situations, as well as the officials. We've all been players ourselves in sport, so we know you've got to manage the official as well. It's all about the rapport you build with the official. So you're right. Generally, if you rub their back up the wrong way, then those 50-50 marginal calls, no matter how much integrity you must have, Eddie, they're not necessary. You do have an intuitive feel as well along it.
I think human nature probably echoes that really, and from your days in the front row, that if you've got a squeeze on the opposition front row and kind of going forward, you're more likely to get a penalty, even though you might be the one causing all the mischief in kind of wheeling the scrum and dragging it down.
You never
I was always on top.
Forward, so
I was always on top. Shut up. I don't know. I was a margin. I think generally speaking, I was pretty forwardish. But you're right. If you can paint the right picture for the official, then you're going to get the calls. Different these days. These days they all play for penalties. Back in the days, you can get a penalty. You just get a punch in the chops or a knee or an elbow or something, or a second row would send one into you because you'd collapse the scrum. So you didn't like it.
When I was manager, I used to speak to the referee, especially if he could speak Welsh. I was it then, straight in Siarad Cymraeg in it. But I'd always tell him how fantastic our scrum was and how our old head tight head Adrian Locke was dismantling other scrums. So every time a first scrum went down, we always had the penalty. I'd put that in their head. Obviously, they realised about 3 or 4 scrums later I was lying. But we'll always get that. So it's mind games a bit to putting things in people's head. We're all human, don't we? At the end of the day,
Yeah, and officials do it to players as well. In terms of that's no different than me trying to tell a player, stay on your feet. that it's no different than that. It's kind of you're kind of trying to take out, not trying to take out their competitive nature, but you kind of trying to guide them to not do something silly, both to protect them and ultimately, if they do something silly, then that means this is a decision for me. Whereas if they don't make that challenge, that's no decision. So it works both ways.
So let's just before we jump on, because I want to talk to you about your first international reffing experience, etc. But we've had a real interesting question come in here. This is for you, Shaky. Yeah. So it's from. Let me get this straight because it's an interesting. It is quite a shaky. Give us your. This is from Gareth James. So Gar James. Yeah. Right. Shaky. Give us your best Magaluf memory.
Shaving Adrian Locke. We had a rota going when we were going out. We all had to take turns shaving Adrian. I can't remember anything else has happened. But Gareth is quite a tourist. Obviously, he's an Eslavera boy, and he was coming away with the Astra boys. He's a bit of a different. Well, he played for Astra, Gareth. Do you know what I mean? So I like to remind him of that. Won the Swansea Valley Cup for Astra. When they kicked the winning penalty in the game you played in, Carl, in Trabanos, when we.
You swine, Jamo. I didn't know that.
So he kicked that. Obviously, being a Vera boy is a different level to us Astra boys on a trip. So I can't go into too much detail, but I'll always remember shaving Adrian.
We should ask Jamo what his favourite memory was. We'll have to wait till after the watershed, I think.
It's a lot more exciting than mine, I can tell you that.
That's what he's asking, isn't he? He knows he's got the pictures still to back it up. Brilliant stuff. So, Ed, let's talk about international being a ref, officials and stuff like that. What was your first international game? What was the first game you were involved in?
First game was an under-21 game in Luxembourg. Luxembourg versus Poland. 4-0 to Poland, I think it was. Been nice for me because it was relatively easy because Poland were dominant. It was a nice introduction. I was lucky enough to go back to Luxembourg many times after that. But yeah, it was for somebody coming from Cwmturch, to go, the whole sort of like preparation and sort of like protocols attached to a UEFA game, even back then, they're far greater now. It was like a different world, in terms of travel out the day before the game, you're there the day of the game, travel back the day after, making sure you got the right kit, making sure your passport's valid, all of those little things that nowadays, probably as we travel far more, we're kind of used to doing. Back then, hadn't really traveled abroad a huge amount, so it's kind of getting into that sort of space, and the preparation is totally different in terms of pre-match and all the stuff that you do before the game. Because at times is quite a lot of dead time because you're just in the hotel or having a stroll just outside the hotel. Perhaps less opportunity to do that these days, but certainly back then, you could stroll around relatively incognito and see bits of cities that you're visiting.
So they sorted all of that out for you, basically. You got the nod to say, look, were you reffing or were you running the line?
Running the line, always running the line. So
you got the nod to say, look, this is your first gig. Off you go to Luxembourg. Flew from Cardiff, presumably, was it, or do you have to go to Heathrow? Or
probably Heathrow back then. Probably flew direct from Heathrow.
How old are you, Ed? How old were you when you did that?
I would have been 26.
So quite like obviously it's like working away, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is essential. So what was the food like in Luxembourg?
Food's outstanding. The food is brilliant. You've been, the big perk of going away with on any UEFA/FIFA trip is you get put up in 99.99% of the time, very, very good quality hotels, 4 or 5
Right,
stars.
it's like that Sepp Blatter, isn't it? Slashing the cash money everywhere, Sepp Blatter.
So can't talk about him anymore.
One for you, one for me. One for you, puts you in a hotel, pushes in the bank. And I don't mean that just in case his lawyers ever watch this.
Just in case his Vietnamese lawyers have been
if his Vietnamese lawyers are watching it, I've only got one thing to say to them, which is, if I can get this thing to work, this is my translator, Google Translate.
Xin chào.
Xin chao. So it must be nice. Like, so Luxembourg, one side of the fair, pretty easy, I guess. Gig on the touchline, nothing untoward. So what was the progression from there? Did you did sort of full internationals? Did you as well?
Yeah. So then the way it works is that UEFA will appoint the referee from the particular country. So for that game, they appointed Kerry Richards from Wales, and then they'll ask the association to nominate the rest of the officials, and then have to be kind of the international grade, or at least top division for one of the assistants. So then you get feedback on the game after the match from like the referee observer type coach. Report comes back to the FAW in a few days after that. Obviously, a copy goes to UEFA, and then UEFA appoint Welsh officials to games as they see fit, compared to their ranking in the whole European scheme. Then, so then to get considered for some of the other games, it's literally on domestic performance and those European games. Really, you do well in Europe. Obviously, that bodes well for consideration for perhaps more challenging matches.
Am I right to saying you're limited because you're Welsh, as in like because you ref in the Welsh league? Because at one time Welsh referees could referee in the Premiership, couldn't they? Or was it the Division 1? Yeah. Is it Keith Cooper, the Swans manager's father? Is it Clive Thomas? Is it?
So Clive Thomas had retired well before that, but Keith Cooper certainly refereed in the Premier League. Roger Gifford did. Keith Burge did. We had a few assistants, and then that sort of like stopped when the Welsh Premier League was created. Not sure of what the politics were, but basically the English FA withdrew because we now had a national league. The English FA withdrew their invitation to Welsh officials to officiate in a competition, whereas previously we didn't have a national league, so it was an extra pool for the English FA.
Yeah, it's a shame, really, from a personal perspective with you, isn't it? Because I should imagine that you could be. I should imagine the top referees there are professional. Are they?
Oh, very professional.
And I can't imagine it is this in the Welsh League. Are there any professional referees in Wales?
No, none at all. For me, it's not a case of that carrot was never there for me to be in the English system. So it's not something I've ever dwelt on to any great extent to say, the rug was pulled out for me. That just wasn't the career path there. So no, all of our officials are effectively semi-pro. But these days we basically ask them to be as professional as some of their more illustrious counterparts in terms of submitting training data off their polo watches, the amount of training events they have to attend, so on and so forth. Professional with a small p.
Yeah. That's tough, isn't it? It's tough because that isn't there isn't a level playing field. But like you said, very very early on in this conversation, It's kind of where the money is where, you can't really compete with something like the Premiership, really, because of the amount of money involved there. And they need professionals with a big P, really, to run that process. Were you ever tempted to come across into England? Were you ever tempted to go into the FA and follow that pathway?
Not really. Even when I went to university in Leicester, I refereed season and a half of the 3 that I was there in the Leicester City League, and that was enjoyable, and it served a purpose in sort of keeping your hand in whilst you were away, really. So
you went to Leicester University, do you? Yeah.
I went to De Montfort. Leicester Poly to the real old hacks. So yeah.
Yeah, but still, good uni, and not far from me at all, just up the road, really. To be fair, between them and the University of Leicester, they've taken over most of the city. It's the same in Coventry. It's pretty much a university city now.
Yeah.
But fair play. I didn't know that. I didn't know you were up this end.
Yeah, so no, it was good, because then one Saturday you could go to Filbert Street as it wasn't King Power. It was rickety old Filbert Street, and then the Saturday you go to Welford Road, and
fabulous.
that was great going there.
So Dan, you were a cameraman, weren't you, for football? You did a lot of sport photography, etc.
Well, for S4C I was working for mainly, but do some before COVID I was doing some match day camera stuff for the Swans, but I haven't been down since COVID, to be honest with you. I think my days are numbered.
Did you ever film Welsh League, Dan?
Welsh League? No. No, it was only the Swan stuff, really, and so I never really did.
Because the S4C put a Welsh League game out every Saturday, don't they?
Yeah, it's different companies that do. Obviously, Monopolis was the company I worked for, so they were doing things like Hainaw, Pnawn Da, like the wedding show in Welsh, basically, and doing the rally and those kind of programs. So I filmed some
Welsh translation, that, isn't it?
Yeah, and what's it? Dartio was the other one, is it?
It's like when people moan that the rugby's on S4C, but you can't figure out what passio and taclio is, right?
And Scodio.
And the things that and things aren't like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, carry on.
Oh, good. Fair play. So did you? I was going to ask you if you ever recorded anything that Ed did, but obviously you're too busy doing it.
I got a feeling you did the Swans friendly once, and you were running the line. I'm sure you were. Have I get mixed up?
No, Ben. I was down. I've been down the Liberty pre-season quite a few years. I was lucky enough to be there for the opening game at the Liberty for Kurt's testimonial against Fulham. So yeah, that was a good day out as well. So yeah, that was the bonus of sort of like being a Welsh official, and at the pre-season games at Swansea and Cardiff, they'd be Welsh officials, A, because it was good experience for us, and B, probably because we were a bit cheaper than the guys across the border,
What do you go with international tournaments and things? Obviously, like the Euros and things, because I always thought that the country you're from had to qualify first, which that's not obviously the rule in then, is it? Or is it something to do with professional? Is it, being professional, or what's the score with that? So
in terms of the referees, you mean?
Yeah, could you ever referee in a Euros or a World Cup, or what's the sort of prerequisites?
So that's probably a real, you'd have to be super exceptional as a referee to kind of even get high enough onto the radar to be considered. But if you think of, UEFA send a big chunk of referees to these tournaments, in terms of the World Cup, it's always going to be weighted towards those big countries, the Englands, the Germanys, the Spains, the Italys, because these guys are doing big games in front of big crowds week in, week out. When it comes back to Shakey's point, really, in terms of big decisions and having big consequences. These guys are used to the pressure. That's not to say our guys are not capable, but it's it's a big step up, in terms of that sort of class from the Cymru Premier to those really top class international sides. We're more than capable of doing it. The reality and logistics probably means that
what type of crowds do they get in the Welsh League football?
So it depends really. Then nothing this year. So with the teams that are now in the league, Carnarvon have a very good following. On a Friday night game, they can easily have 1,000 there. Barry on a Friday night easily 750. Some of the others a bit patchy. Aberystwyth is good on a Friday. A lot of teams very good attendances on a Friday, because then they're not necessarily certainly in terms of some of the North Wales side, because it's not very far for people to travel to go to Manchester, Liverpool, to watch the Premier League. People will have their Friday night fix of football and then watch their Premier League side on a Saturday.
That's a good idea, playing on a Friday then, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think they're starting to do that in other sports, isn't they? More Friday nights and because they're not in that competition Saturdays. Yeah,
and it then frees up the rest of the fixture list, because SOC normally put the live game out on the Saturday afternoon or early evening. So then that's not necessarily competing with either the Premier League games or other big sporting events, because that sometimes impacts in terms of crowd numbers. If you think trying to think of a big sporting event that kind of impacts during the season, a big international, Six Nations, for example. That has a massive impact on crowds if they played on a Saturday afternoon, because people might be in the club, but they're certainly not watching the football.
No, I get that 100%. What's the biggest crowd you officiated in front of?
Probably in Rapid Vienna in the Europa League. Full house there, 52,000.
Wow, what was that like?
So it was brilliant. This is where this is what sports people really love and enjoy. It is kind of that adrenaline of being part of a big occasion. Rapid Vienna have their own set of ultras, so a few flares pop in, a few firecrackers pop in behind. So it was in the time where you had the guys, additional guys on the goal line.
Yeah,
trying to watch for Vin pushing the corners and ball over the line. So a couple of firecrackers, popped behind one of the guys, who's kind of jumping 40 foot in the air, going, "What the is going on here?" I was like, trying to concentrate the game and not actually laugh your head off, because he's absolutely crapped it. We've been absolutely bricked it.
Understandably, to be honest.
Yeah.
Rapid Vienna ultras chucking fireworks at you enough to be a little bit. But that's fair play. That's been a monstrous experience. And the Europa League stuff, you've done quite a few games in that.
Yeah. So over the years, we had a good referee from North Wales, Lee Evans, who was at Category 1, which is one below the elite guys in UEFA. So he'd depending on his performances in the year, he'd pretty much get 2 Europa League group games plus some decent internationals along the way. So I was lucky enough to tag along on quite a few of those trips as well. So yeah, it's kind of it's a really good experience going to these bigger clubs, because they're bigger crowd. Rapid Vienna, PSV, some really good clubs, Standard Liège. There's some really good clubs in that.
Who are PSV? Have you officiated a PSV?
Yeah.
Wow, that must have. That's a high fair play, because they you'd say they're certainly a hugely regarded club in European football.
Yeah, and this is where sort of like the even though it's the less glamorous cousin compared to the Champions League, there are some pretty big sides that go through that Europa League. They've either already been in the Champions League and
Arsenal, for example.
Tottenham Hotspur as well. Spurs.
Well, not anymore. Not anymore. We
Finn.
can't even get in that.
I thought you said big sides.
Hey, won more FA Cups than anybody else. Hey, I give you a start on FA Cups now. I was born in 79. Arsenal won the FA Cup. My eldest daughter was born in 2017, won the FA Cup. My youngest daughter was born in 2020. They won the FA Cup. So I have to keep having children, or
for Arsenal to win a trophy.
Otherwise, I'm gonna have to wait for my for my grandchildren as well to ever win a trophy again. Like.
I think you're safe for the foreseeable, Shaky. I think Colburn have got more chance of winning an FA Cup at the minute.
You'll have Tottenham fans sending GoFundMe pages for me to have the snip now, just to make sure it doesn't happen.
My household is a Spurs household.
Yeah, that must be miserable.
Almost as bad as being a Welsh rugby supporter. Just
always slightly better.
Lots of misery.
At least we won some in the last 70 years.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, back to Eddie.
So Eddie, in terms of your involvement now with the game, etc., and your involvement with actually, let's go to cricket. Let's switch back to cricket for a second. Shaky,
I've got two questions on that.
Yeah, let's have the cricket questions because we want to keep the cricket guys happy as well.
Right. The first question from Chris Locke is: how many more runs would you have scored for Ystrad if you didn't have Tomo as your opening partner?
Funny enough, Tom posted something about this on Friday on Facebook. Then to answer Chris, probably at least 1,000. At least 1,000.
Was Tomo a bit shy? Was he a bit shy taking the run?
Well, he was very good at counting to 5 when he was facing, and then 6 ball he'd push one into the covers and then start charging down to the other end of the pitch. And it's like, you've got to run because the big man has started running. So so he was very good at doing that, and very good at running when he was hitting them, less so when it was perhaps me at the other end. So that's been a running joke for obviously well over 25 years. But yeah,
you could bowl as well, Tom, couldn't you?
Oh, very, very crafty. Slow bowler. I wouldn't say spin bowler because he never turned the ball, but he used to confuse batters because he'd tell them that he was going to turn it and then just bowl it straight and then and pick it. He was a
my
top,
kind of spin bowling.
Yeah, no, he was a very wily bowler because he'd played a lot of midweekly cricket, so like 2020 stuff, so he knew how to kind of change pace and didn't bowl with much loop anyway, so it was kind of quick and flat or just quicker and flatter, So
you must have talked a few out as well.
Or he talked many a person out.
He's in the slips, probably.
Oh yeah, Vin loads of time. There was one game we ended up in Llandyssil where we were in mega amounts of trouble. We'd done really well to kind of pin them down. They got down to the last pair. They brought it back from the brink, and then Tom was bowling, Paul Evans was wicketkeeper, and then basically kind of wandered up to the guy and said, "Who's your money on, friend?" "My money's on me," and then turned round and walked back to his mark. Then floated one up. The guy must have been, guy had lost the plot and then tried to smash him out the ground. Boom, missed. Then into Paul Evans' club. Then verbal again. "Money's still on me, my friend. Where's your money?" Then the other one, another slog, miss. Then starts rubbing his hands, chuckling, then going, "Oh, money's still on me, friend." Then Third ball, bump, out. Then laughing his head off, walking off the pitch, won the game. Then just talked this guy out. Then blown his head at the key point of the game.
Sledging's quite a big thing in cricket, isn't it? Professional level, isn't it?
Professional. It's professional. It's can be quite tasty. It's been probably toned down a bit over the last few years with press and stump mics. More match fines and penalty points and accumulating like that. So it's probably less. But then Tomo was a master of the verbal jibe to an opponent to kind of sledge him out of the game, whether I was batting or bowling. He was expert.
There's another question from Chris. What make was your yellow card? It's the biggest card I've ever seen. I could fit the whole first team cricket kit in it.
The yellow card. Oh, that was an old Volvo. It was, I think, at one stage. I think Craig Joke would call it something like the Yellow Submarine. It was massive, big old Volvo. Days when there was no money in the King household to pay for a fancier and faster car. So steady as she goes.
It sounded quite handy as regards to the cricket, though.
Oh, the boot was massive. Could fit about 5 kits in there without, in big kit bags without even having to squish anything in.
Yeah, Volvos are rock solid as well. Let's be honest with you. They accommodate even the crazy drivers. Like,
going on from Tomo now, we'll go on to I can ask you a question. The gentleman of cricket, Mr. Martin Donnelly.
Yeah.
Who, to be fair, was a fantastic role model for me cricket when I was growing up. And he's a tremendous bloke, Martin. I used to remember reading the Evening Post. His name would be in there a lot for taking wickets. Was he a good bowler?
Oh, he was an excellent bowler. Then, fast swing bowler. Well, then in swinging bowler. Then really accurate. Hated giving runs away. Then really proper grumpy. And even grumpier if he didn't get an LBW decision. He was very competitive. That's the right policeman side of him coming out in terms of that competitiveness and kind of he took best part of 400 wickets.
Wow,
probably more of his career. Then certainly that, and we used to have there was this magnificent stats book that Peter Watkins used to.
Is it the Bible who's called?
Bible, yeah. So it covered something like 1975 to 2005, something like that. Before Peter stopped and went into umpiring, and back then I think Martin had nearly 400 wickets. So by the time you add on a few extra years, he'd have been well over 400 wickets, and probably didn't cost him more than about 15 a wicket, probably less. He was very, very accurate. Didn't give much to anybody.
Yeah, and he's a tremendous servant to us to cricket, wasn't he? He was there till the end, wasn't he?
He was there right to the end. He did did a huge amount in getting a junior side set up, where we had a few players come through. He was captain for years and years. He was fantastic for us. He was very, very astute as a cricketer. Good knowledge of the game. And for those youngsters coming through, he was always willing to kind of help in word and bit of advice. And even for the older stages like myself and the aforementioned Mr. Thomas, wasn't.
The other thing that Mr. Donnelly had in common with you, he was also non-tackling outside half. He played outside half for Neyland.
Nothing wrong with being a non-tackling outside half.
The Barry John John Richards described you as the Barry John of my Stella Enderman.
It's probably a bit of a stretch, to be honest, but we'll take it. We'll take it.
That's pretty impressive, like, to be fair. Look, I'm not too funny, guys. I think Johnny Wilkinson was the first 10 that actually did tackle, wasn't he? Was there anyone else that was involved in that before him?
Oh, he made it fashionable, didn't he?
Mm.
Yeah, O'Gara. Fair play to O'Gara. I've seen turnstiles with better stopping power.
Yeah.
No, fair play. So Eddie, just just as we draw things to a conclusion, there, Dan, have you got anything for Eddie? Anything you wanna bring up?
We're going back to cricket. Like, it's kind of fizzled a bit, doesn't it? Or it's kind of not seen as a cool sport, I guess, these days. I don't know. But then you see in like areas like Trebanos and down that area, and there seems to be a lot of boys playing cricket in the summer there, and Armandford, and it's still quite popular, isn't it? And in certain areas, but it just seems to have fizzled a bit in this year. Do you know any? Do you just think it's just because it's an unpopular sport now, or it's sort of lost its charm a bit over the years?
No, I think there were a couple of factors really. I think for me the biggest one was the ever expanding football and rugby seasons. Back in the day, the rugby season started the first Saturday in September and ended the last Saturday in April, and then cricket filled the gap. So then you had players who played rugby and football and cricket. So that affected us massively. We had loads of players who did both, including myself. Even when I was playing cricket, there'd be big chunks of the season where I wasn't available because either I was away and doing a European game, because that's when UEFA competitions start in July, so regularly August, or people are pre-season training and so on and so forth. So that for me was the biggest sort of like drain on players.
Long days in cricket.
It was a long day back then, and as one of the teams in the lower part of kind of the association, we'd been campaigning along with a few other clubs in terms of getting that game shortened from 50 overs down to 40 overs, which even by doing that saves at least an hour. But then you'd have life members who would only go and watch cricket at St Helens, which is all very nice and very very serious and very good quality. And thinking, nothing can change. So, it was voted out so many times in terms of changing those playing rules. And there was an insistence that you had to have two teams to be part of that association. So we had to make the difficult decision to cut it down to one, which then meant that there was less pressure on chasing up. So say Shaky was in the club, or then fancy a game for the seconds today, then we're short by a couple. It's kind of dragging those boys who have played but don't necessarily commit to playing every Saturday. But that was a big thing for us as well. And then when people retire and or have families and have different commitments, which make number of hours on a cricket field less attractive.
That's a football question.
Yeah.
Who's the best player that you ever officiated? Or most famous, perhaps, then?
Most famous. There's a few really. Then I suppose officiated Mesut Ozil, Arsenal reference field, in a under-21 game.
He's obviously better than when he played for Arsenal. He must have been better then.
Oh, he was far better then. Tony Kroos in the UEFA under-17s. Henrik Larsson when he was playing for Helsingborg. Our referee didn't recognise him in the warm-up. It's like, you say you're a Man United fan, he just left Man United, and he just walked past him and was like, oh, who's that guy? Well, that's Henrik Larsson.
Cash Orbich, you mentioned Henrik Larsson.
Henrik Larsson, Celtic connection, yeah.
He's just messaged now, Carl. It wasn't that long a day playing cricket for Ystrad.
Some days were quite short. It just meant it was awfully long in the bar, which had been a heavy heavy consequence afterwards.
I tell you what, I remember because I was young playing with the seconds, but I remember you as a first team. You were very tight and you all stuck together. And you were a tidy side, weren't you? We were, but there was good characters there. There was good banter there.
Oh, there was lots of banter, you know, dummy clubs and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, you know, we were decent side. You know, we had good banter. You know, we enjoyed each other's company. You know, it was good. Really good times. You know.
You mentioned St Helens earlier. Did you play there with Ystrad?
I did play there with Ystrad. We played there in one of the cup competitions. You know, standard. You know, Division 4 side, or we'll draw them away to the league champions of Division 1. Nice little knockabout for the seniors. You know, those quality players. Yeah, so we played there. We lost. Adrian Griffiths scored 100. Yeah.
He's a good cricketer, Adrian, though, wasn't he?
Yeah. To be fair, he was good. You know, good lefty batter. So.
Oh, fair play. Real quick one then, guys. Buzzball. Let's talk about you. Wouldn't have seen this, Ed. You can't even see it now because of the camera. But let me just get it out of the way. Yeah, this is a rugby ball, right? That vibrates when you want it to be passed. So it's for teaching players via a remote control here. It's amazing bit of technology, actually. It's got a remote control here. Try and show it there. I don't know if you can see it so well.
Yeah.
But it's got a red button on it. When you press the button, the ball vibrates. So as a coach, when you're coaching, you know, I don't think you could do it so well with your feet in football unless you're barefooted. But in rugby, we were talking about it earlier today. So there's a promo video coming out about it later on in the week, which BV2 will be discussing the use of it. But I thought I'd just plug it while I could, really, to be honest.
Yeah, free plug. Yeah.
We've got no shares in it, by the way. We're just helping someone out with a good turn. Like, that's the type of guys we are.
Yeah, you didn't need that when you were playing outside half, Ed. You knew when to pass the ball.
I knew when to pass. Normally when the big second, normally when the big flanker was coming towards me, then ship it on to Sades, then straight away.
Oh, so you had tiny players around you then. Sades.
Oh, that's why he was a good player. he was Merlin the Magician. He had like big tractor arse coming in on outside him. Just give it to him. Then the rest of it was easy.
Yeah.
Who else was in the side, Ed?
So then we'd have had Bowley would have been in the side, Barry William.
Yeah.
Then Di Lewis then would have been on the other wing. Oh, then some decent players. And myself.
Did you enjoy playing rugby though?
Yeah, you know, then mice back in the day, it was rugby or rugby. You know, you didn't have. It was kind of.
Was it Snowy was a PE teacher, was he?
Snowy wasn't giving you any choice until June, at which point it was golf or golf. You know, then.
Oh, he loved it, Snowy.
You know, class act. You know, it was Snowy and Bob Gould for the first couple of years when I was there, but it was Snowy. You know, then football was like, you know, it was like a swear word. You know,
oh, chance.
Not a
rugby or rugby. So guess you got a choice there, guys. You can play rugby or you can get changed and play rugby. It's up to you.
Yeah. So. And you know, he was a great teacher because he was a good player himself. So he taught good basic skills in those PE lessons. So that kind of helped in terms of.
Well, the fact he was out to half as well, Ed, must have helped.
Yeah,
he was 10. He played for Swansea, didn't he? He was 10 for Swansea.
Yeah. He was a really good player. Like.
I heard that. I heard he was class, absolute class. But Julian, his boy, was very good too, wasn't he? Genetically passed down, like.
I got a shock now because obviously in the Welsh squad, there's two boys from Slavera, isn't there? From the Gavin in the Welsh squad. Is it Ruben Culwell, his name is, the boy from Cardiff City?
Yeah.
And Ben Davis. But I remember being in a Slavera school and it was like, if everyone was too scared to play rugby, here's a football, like you can have a team yourself, right? There was never like, if you were any good at rugby, even if you liked football more, you were playing rugby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to have two football internationals come out of there is just quite a shock for me from culture. From when I was there, it was like rugby, playing the harp, and being academic, and you had to be one of those three, right? You know what I mean? It was like
that was like Di Miller, Di Miller, year below us, like. you class footballer. He had trials in Norwich and stuff like that. He's an exceptional footballer, but he didn't have a choice. He had to play rugby.
Yeah.
He was
He was a
like,
good player, though, when he was
good
player.
10, another 10.
Player.
I played rugby with Di about 5 years ago. He played when we played Abercrave Vets. Di had a game for us.
Yeah,
He played for a Strud.
Yeah,
Fair play. I'd have expected him to have opted for the good side. Like
Ben Davis's father played cricket for Australia.
Captain, wasn't he?
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
neck.
And
It's nice to hear the local boys who are making a Welsh squad. I know that is it Cowdell? Is it Cowdell?
Colwell.
Ruben Cowdell. I saw a few people on Facebook. A couple of our friends, friends on Facebook were congratulating him and stuff. Like, so I wasn't sure what the connection was there. But
he's caught in with Andrew Samuel as his daughter. I know Titch, Andrew Samuel.
That's where I saw it.
There's a thing like, but it's good though to see now, like Slavera and my school now have developed now and allowing people to play football. I mean, and that there's so much more opportunities then. They can play different sports. Because we keep saying it, how transferable are skills from different sports, isn't it? Does your boy play more than one sport, Ed?
Yeah, he plays football and rugby. Plays football for Cum. Plays in goals for Cum. Plays rugby for Strud.
It's good, isn't it, that they can try these different sports, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's very important. It doesn't, especially at this, this young age where for some of these kids, there's so much pressure on them being, parts of academies, whether that's football academies or in rugby pathways into terms of that. You kind of want them to kind of get the enjoyment of both sports and understand that they bring something different in terms of teamwork and camaraderie. And if you talked about a football youth team and a rugby youth team, they're two totally different beasts, in terms of what that entails, for Harry, I just want him to enjoy sport for what it is, really, aside from anything else, and hope that he still has a love of sport, when he in 35 years time, when he's my age, it's kind of making sure it's something that he's got there for life, really, in terms of a passion for sport and activity, and whether it's football, rugby.
There's a limit to cricket opportunities now. They seem to be very limited, don't they, compared to when we were younger, like.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part in terms of the right, in that's the right opportunity for the youngsters, really. You from here, you have to travel to Clydach or go towards Neath, and that's tough, but for those sort of like setups to work, you need kind of a good group of willing volunteers who
like Dorian Barlow.
Yeah,
Dorian Barlow of this generation.
We're able to devote the time needed to make things work, really, and that's what all successful clubs have, really, is that hardcore of devoted volunteers who.
Yeah, we've all done it, and it's tasking at times, isn't it? I mean, and it's thankless, but when you look at the result and you see people going on and you see how happy people are, it doesn't make it worthwhile, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. For me, just seeing kids play on a Saturday or Sunday morning and just enjoying the game for what it is, at the end of the day, a game, and getting something out of it.
Fair play. Like I'm pretty. It's interesting you're saying there about the pathway and things like that, and how you just want your son to enjoy playing the sport. And one of the things I've been involved in the pathway for 5, maybe even 6 seasons now, working and seeing young players coming through, etc. And it's interesting from my own experiences of that. I'd be perhaps not as excited about my kids going down that pathway, because unless they're exceptionally talented, and it's nice to be associated. And I'm not saying that from I feel passionate about what it does for those players with ability, etc. But I also see what it does to those players that, it becomes a bit more serious than fun. They kind of lose the fun out of it because they're so caught up in trying to be, elites, really, trying to be that professional top end stuff. And, the reality is for the vast majority of them, they're there to help, the small percentile who are going to go on to make it. And it's tough. It's a tough thing. So when I talk to my lads, it's all about love the sport. Just enjoy it, be social, make good friendships out of it for life, understand what it can give you in terms of confidence and know-how, and just have fun doing it, And if you can do that, you'll play it forever. Well, I know guys who basically fall in love with the game at 15, 16, never going to play it again. And it's like, that's just mad.
Yeah, it is. And you do. And in that context, they've probably, if you look back, they've probably been playing for best part of 10 years when they're quitting at 15 and 16, starting at minis and tag and that sort of thing. So, and that's, that's the big thing to try and overcome, really, isn't it? In terms of making sure that they enjoy the game for the game, not whatever the end result may or may not be.
And it's a tough one, isn't it? Because we're all, everyone's competitive, and it's a tough one to try and do that. And everyone wants to wear the stash, and everyone wants to. So I do get that completely. Brilliant. Okay, Ed. I think unless there's anything from the chaps, anything from you guys, Ed. Let me thank you on behalf of the nation. Let me thank you on behalf of all our Vietnamese contingent as well, who I know. You never know. This might push them up further. You might be a bigger attraction in Vietnam than Gar Toms was. Who knows? If you're in Vietnam, I just like to wish you good night.
Sorry, I've got a question on that. Have you ever reffed in Asia, Ed?
Asia depends where you draw the line at Asia. Really, in Azerbaijan, yes. Israel, yes.
But draw the line. Israel is in Asia. I think they only compete in Europe because of the political issues. I've been to Israel. Yeah. It's a scary place, Israel. It's on the top 3 places I've been most scared. There's Israel, downtown Los Angeles, and the Penny after 10 o'clock on a Saturday. The 3 most scary. Have you reffed in Israel? You said you have reffed in Israel, have you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not a place to make jokes at airport security. That's for sure.
What's it like? Were they quite strict going through there? Were they?
Oh, unbelievably strict. There's no jokes. We went there for a friendly international, and they're checking your paperwork. Checking all the documentations. You get scanned about 4 times. Just in case the first 3 didn't detect whatever they were expecting to be coming through. So in terms of the communication headsets that the referees now use, not allowed to use those because it's on a frequency. So you have to use their comm sets, which is set on a different frequency, so they didn't interfere with anything. Military
going on. Mental. Well, here's a story. So Israel, Paul Storer, right? Some of you on the show might know him. Everyone on the show will know him, but people at home watching might not know him. If you don't, he's a big drinker, terrible singer. So he's so he goes to the kibbutz, on a working holiday. So he's goes to the kibbutz, does whatever he does out there in the kibbutz. Nice name. I don't know what it means. So he comes back anyway, and we go on a boys' holiday. Yeah, we're going on a boys' holiday, driving through France to Spain. Yeah, so we're driving through France, and all the way down through France. Stopped off for a few nights in various places. Got very drunk. Storer by name, snorer by nature. Absolutely shattered windows and stuff. Driving our way down through France, we get to the Pyrenees, right? Basque country. Yeah. So we get to, obviously, all the border police there on fairly high alert because ETA have been a bit fruity and been kicking off all over the place. Yeah, so ETA have been abducting and killing people and stuff. So we all get there now, right? Pretty steam. No, I won't say steaming, sorry. Hungover like dogs, yeah? Because me, Paul Allen, who else was this? Rob Griff. So Rob Snob, Storer, his mate, I forget the chap's name now, but we were a terrible state of affairs, like almost, when you're so hungover, you're just like a soulless human being, yeah. So we get there now, we're about to go through the border crossing, just as we're about to drive through, right? The cops, literally the border police, all come, we're all given in our passports, Storer gives his, right? They see an Israeli stamp on it in the middle of an ETA crisis, right? They're like this, whoa, get out, made us get out of the cars. Literally, they're all there, like hands, near their guns and stuff, because they've all got guns in France. Even the bloody park wardens have got guns. They've all got guns. We're looking at these guns thinking, oh my God, like, I'm soulless anyway. Can you imagine getting shot on the Pyrenees because Storer went to the kibbutz? But they literally stripped the cars, took all of our stuff out, out of all of Paul Allen's polo mags, everything. Just they pulled everything out just so they could just check us out, because it was a security flag for them. The fact that they'd been to Israel on the passport was a security flag. So if you're thinking of going to the kibbutz, guys, I wouldn't do that right now if I was you.
I had something like that coming from driving from Canada into America, and because my mother was born in Ystwyth, they looked at it. They thought it was someplace in Russia or something. Like, my mother was being questioned as like a Russian spy. Went from Canada to America. Like, you're not going to watch and use old passports. Like, where's this Ystwyth place? Like, I'm thinking it doesn't sound like a British word. She must be Russian.
And let's be fair.
So quizzing my old girl, then, calling a comrade and this, that, and the other. Like,
I'd rather French border patrols than Americans. Let's be honest. And I'm not going to be disparaging about the entire nation, but let's be honest. You wouldn't want them on your side in question time, would you, or something like that, like, or a mastermind? Israel
was one of the reasons we qualified for the World Cup in '58. Did you see that program the other day?
Yeah.
Because they'd qualified from from the Asia and Africa end, but they qualified because nobody in the Middle East would play them. So the FIFA said, look, you can't qualify by not playing a game. So Wales had not qualified from the European group, but were put into a hat and drawn out, I think, when as like the teams who finished second. I think actually Belgium were drawn out first, and they said, we're not going to a World Cup or not, sort of thing. Like, we want to go on merit. But Wales said, yeah, we'll have a crack. And they beat Israel, beat them twice. And then Wales represented Asia and Africa in the 1958 World Cup. The only time we've ever qualified. How about that for a start then, Carl?
Impressive as always, Shaky. Impressive. Where do you get this stuff from? I'm sure you've got like Wikipedia or something open at the same time.
I just make it up and sound really confident.
You just know that we haven't done our research like you, so where you can...
I watched a program with Ellis James on it. I had heard something, but Ellis James did a program on it last week, the history of Welsh football or something.
Football Nation, yeah.
It was really good. Watch it on BBC iPlayer. Well worth watching.
Do you know what hello is in Vietnamese, though?
No, I don't. Tell me.
Right. Well, Google Translate says it's this. To all our Vietnamese, because they'll just be getting up now. Let's be honest. This will be in the morning for them.
Xin chào.
Xin chào. Hello. Xin chào, Hugh. That's going to be my entry from now on onto this veritable podcast. So, brilliant stuff.
And because, like Welsh, they speak, because Welsh is backwards, English is backwards. I don't think Welsh is backwards. They put the words the wrong way around, don't they? But it's actually English that's backwards. Most languages are the same as Welsh, aren't they? They probably think the King Eddie is on. So they probably think we've got royalty there now, don't they?
Oh, King Eddie the Third.
Yeah.
the richest man to come out of come.
Very much doubt that.
Most travelled as well.
Come, King Eddie.
King Eddie, the new Cymro King. Right, guys, I'm going to let you jump off for the night and let everyone at home jump off the night. Thank you so much, everyone, from wherever you are, whether you're in New Zealand, Vietnam, Ni Chao, or in Cwm Twrch. Like, thank you so much for joining us tonight, guys, and we'll see you all next Monday, where we've got a secret guest to announce. And I can't tell you who that is just right now, but there's been a change in lineup because they just weren't good enough. We had to move on. So that's the way it rolls. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. Good night.
Thanks. Take it easy.
Thank you, Ed.
Cheers, Ed.